Hello everyone. I wanted to share this shortcut I made in Excel that speeds up the process of getting a true position value. Let's take a look at this example. We have two linear dimensions here. Let's assume that we're working in standard. We have plus or minus 1/8 of an inch as the tolerance for both of these dimensions. And below that we have a similar feature with the same dimensions, but now we have a diametric tolerance, a true position value. So this is the equation for true position, 2 times square root of the deviation of x raised to the second power plus the deviation of y raised to the second power. It can be a lot to remember, and doing more than one or two can get tiresome. So as a quality technician, I was always looking for a way to speed up this process and make it a bit more simple. Let's imagine we measure this part up here, and it reads 1 inch and 9/10, which would give us a deviation of 9/10. And in the other direction, it reads 3/4 of an inch and 6/10 for a deviation of 6/10. Now that we have our deviations, let's go over to the Excel sheet. Now, at first glance, this chart might seem a little daunting, but let me walk you through it. Our deviation in x was 9/10. So we follow across the top until we find 9/10. There it is. Our deviation in y was 6/10. So we go to our leftmost column and we follow down until we find 6/10. Once we find it, we follow the row across until we see the intersection. So that means that 2 thou and 2/10 is our true position value for the deviations of this feature. The shading here is used to help guide the user. This sheet does not need to be limited to Excel. I've set it up so that it can be printed and used as a flipbook where the leftmost column is constant while the top row gradually increases. I've only got 3 pages set up for this one, but this can go on indefinitely. For this chart, the increments are in tenths of a thousand. But this can be easily changed to thousandths or even tenths that could be used for metric true positions. I will include a link in the description that includes charts for all 3 of these increments. If you would like to see the process of creating this chart, stick around. If you find this chart useful, please like the video and let me know in the comments. Alright, now to get into how this chart works. We're going to start with a blank canvas, and the first thing we're going to do is drag a pattern of 0 to a 50 across the top and across the left hand side. Now from here we're going to insert 2 columns. We're going to insert 2 rows. I'm going to add a 0 here, 0 here, 1 right there. We're going to get rid of this one. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put an equation in here, and this is where your increment is decided. For this example, I'm going to do 10th increments. We're going to multiply it by the number directly above. We're going to do the same thing in this spot, but we're going to multiply it by the number to the left. And then we're going to drag these until we meet our edges. Now that we have that set, we can collapse the first row and the first column. Get rid of this 0 and put this 0 right here. For a deviation that has 0 in one direction, what it comes down to is multiplying the number by 2, because if we look at the true position equation, if one number is 0 The next number gets raised to the second power and square rooted, so those two cancel out. So you're left with just multiplying by 2. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do 2 times the number directly above. And we're going to do the same thing where we drag this across. We'll do a similar thing on the left-hand side. Now, whatever increment you're using, you want to make sure that your entire chart is formatted to the float of its number. So that way everything's consistent and easy to read. Now, it's not necessary for these zeros. We'll just get rid of that real quick. So from here, we're going to enter our true equations for true position that include deviations from both axes. And the way this works is it's the same equation as before, but we are referencing the cell on the leftmost side, and the money sign right here locks it so that it's always going to be referencing this side. The money sign is not beneath the 4 because we're going to be dragging this down. As we drag this down, that 4 is going to change to a 5 in this spot. It's going to change to a 6 in this spot. Now we have a similar thing going on for this other deviation, but this time the money sign is behind the 2, meaning that it's going to be locked in this row. And as we drag across, it's going to be changing which column it is referencing. So the next one is going to be referencing E, the next one is going to be referencing F, and so on and so forth. So we'll drag these across real quick. And then you can even drag this whole entire selection across. Looks like I did an extra one there. We can just get rid of that. And there we go. Now we have all our numbers, but it is a little hard to see. It's hard to navigate. So let me show you how I did the conditional formatting that sets up the colors, or I guess the black and white scale that makes it a bit easier to look at and use. Alright, so these are the two equations that are used in the conditional formatting that make it so that the grayscale turns on. I do not know how these function, but I found them online and they work well for the purpose I'm looking for. So it is important that we enter this one first. So we're going to copy that. I'm going to go to conditional formatting. Well, first let's select the whole sheet. Conditional formatting, manage rules, new rule, use a formula, paste that in here. I'm going to go to format, and for this equation we want to do the darker. I choose the fourth one from the bottom here. Okay, and now we're going to add one more rule. We'll use a formula again. And I'm going to put in the second equation I've got here. And for this one, we're going to be choosing the lighter gray, the second from the bottom, or second down. I'm going to press OK, apply, and there we have it. Now, there's some extra things that go into setting this up to be printable. You can use this as just an Excel sheet and continue this pattern on as long as you'd like to go, but to make it printable, the first thing we're going to want to do is take away all our rules, because we're going to have to reapply these, and then we're going to want to go to File, Print. We're going to want to use a landscape orientation. We want to choose fit all rows on one page. That way we have 0 to 50 on the left-hand side. And most printers in the industrial field use a 1/4 inch gap, or at least like that's the you can't print past the 1/4 inch gap. I mean, that from my experience. So I've had this set up with a 1/4 inch on the top, a 1/4 inch on the bottom, and then 0.7 on the left and right hand side, just so that there was no getting a extra column in here. So this centers it relatively well. Now that we know that our last number is 17/10, we know that 18/10 is going to be where the new page starts. But with a new page, we want the leftmost column to stay the same as the first page so that we can find the value across to the deviation that we're looking for. So we're going to insert the column, and we're also going to insert a second one. And the reason for the second one, if it was one column, the patterns would be different across the pages. So we're going to put this extra one in here, but all we're going to do is just hide it anyway. We just need it for the counts, basically. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these numbers, we're going to copy 18/10 is where the new page starts, but we're just going to paste the values here. There we go. Now I want to go to print, and we can see that scrolling from the first page to the second page, the leftmost column stays the same. It looks like the formatting didn't stay, but what we can do is instead of pasting the values, we can paste the value and number formatting. So there we go. So that looks good. We're going to go back to print. At the end of this page, 35 is the last number. So we're going to scroll to 35 right here. And we're going to insert 2 columns again. And you're basically just going to keep repeating this process. Copying that first column. Yes. I did it before 35, so I'm going to do it after 35. Insert the 2 columns. I'm going to paste the formatting and values. We're going to hide this column. Now if we go to print, looks like we have some extra space here. Let's turn on grid lines, or borders, my bad. So that way we can distinguish easier. It looks like the print line, print boundary is right here. So just for fun, we're going to make this look a bit nicer. Let's unhide this real quick. We're going to drag this out. 53. Drag these out. We're going to hide that first row again. And now we're going to drag that whole column across. And there we go. Let's go back home. Now we're going to add that conditional formatting back in. Now when we go to print, we can see that the colors are consistent across the 3 pages. The leftmost column stays the same across the 3 pages. And as you continue to across the pages, the increments across the top gradually increase. Start from 0, go to 17. Next page is 18, then 35. The last page is 36 to 53. And this can keep going as long as you would like. Now, if you would like to change the increments, it's a bit easier to do this when it's just an Excel sheet, so you might want to choose your increments before setting it up to be printed. But even set up this way, you can relatively easily change the increments. We just want to go to our first increment here. We want to change that, let's say, to 1,000. So we just get rid of a 0 there, press enter. I'm going to drag this across. Do the same thing on the left-hand side here. Get rid of a 0. And drag this down. Now that our increments are at 1,000, we're going to want to change that float. So let's go to Format. Change the number to 3 decimal places. Now that we've fixed the float, we're going to want to reset these to have a float of 0. And then we're going to need to fix the first columns of each page. So we're going to copy that first column. And come here. Paste the values in formatting. Do the same thing on the third page. And it's as easy as that. So now we have 1,000th increment true position values. One thing that I've thought about doing, and you can do this once the page is printed, this is something I thought about, and it's easier with the highlighter. I can't really do it right now because conditional formatting doesn't let me color these squares, but I can show you with coloring the letters. So let's say that our true position, our max true position allowable is 20,000. What we can do is we can highlight the squares that are acceptable up to that tolerance. So we just highlight these squares. And what we can do then is figure that if we have 8,000 in one direction and 4,000 in the other direction, then we are within tolerance. If we have 8,000 one direction and 5,000 one direction, we're still within tolerance. But the cutoff is 8,000 one direction and 6,000. So you can continue to do this as much as you'd like, and you can do it for plenty of different other boundaries, but this is my chart, and I hope you've enjoyed. Hopefully it helps you out in the field, and like I said, let me know in the comments. Please leave a like, and thanks for watching.